us, regardless of age or background, it was a chance to examine firsthand the vastness of India and attempt to gain a greater understanding of the land's complexity. Through a bird's eye view of Gujarat, many of us wound up rediscovering ourselves. Glimpses from Mahatma Gandhi's life are indelibly etched in every world history textbook ever published. His life and teachings have influenced various aspects of India's political and social framework.
This is original house of Mahatma Gandhi ji from 1918 to 1930. Gandhi ji and his wife Kasturba stayed in this house. This is a temple of truth.
But by visiting the Sabarmati ashram, we were able to absorb the living legacy that is the Mahatma. To set foot on a Gandhian establishment and be part of the activities of the children residing there was an uplifting experience in itself. If Gujarati culture and tradition was what we sought, we found it that evening at the Vishala restaurant in Ahmedabad. Dazzling show of dances, drums, and puppets, which we enjoyed and also eagerly participated in, was topped off with a very hearty meal and a lively ambiance that could not have personified the Gujarati spirit any better.
Today I realized that there are simple things in life that you can really appreciate, like eating on a banana leaf and sitting on the ground and enjoying what you're eating and talking to people and learning about just what a typical Gujarati meal might be. I think learning about those simple things in life really opened things up for me.
The next morning, we Yatris dove deep into ancient Gujarat by visiting a baudi or step well that was a hallmark means of effectively preserving water during the monsoon season for use during the next drought. Its architectural complexity amazed us and gave us a sense of how far-reaching human minds were even centuries ago. Later that evening, we dressed in our finest attire in anticipation of our visit with Mr. Narendra Modi, the Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat. What followed was an interesting conference where many of us broached questions to him on issues such as healthcare, poverty, population, security, and the overall state of Gujarat.
Are there any steps that you're taking to ensure that the poor here receive some sort of medical care?
In India, the people, those who are below poverty line, they are getting the free medical treatment.
Gujarat is one of the fastest growing states in India. What is your government doing to make sure that the poorest Gujaratis are included in that growth?
Number one, Gujarat is the fastest growing state. You have a correct information that the growth rate of the country is 7%, whereas growth rate of my state is 15%. If we provide a proper facility for the agriculture sector, it will create more and more jobs, and that will eradicate the poverty.
We've talked about lots of the success stories about Gujarat, but in our discussions, one of the things we always end up coming back to is the problems that population poses to the state and how to deal with them.
We have a problem. I'm sure that education is only answer, and we are trying our level best for that. But at the same time, India is the youngest country of the world. We have to formulate a strategy. We must have our own plan how to use this power which India has. मैं विश्व में फैले हुए सभी भारतीयों को प्रार्थना करता हूं कि आप अपने देश को हमेशा याद रखें। आपके अपने देश के प्रति जो प्रेम है उसको अभिव्यक्त करने का लिए एक छोटा रास्ता जो मेरे मन में है वो आपके संबंध में रखता हूं। हिंदुस्तान को दुनिया के अंदर ले जाने की सबसे बड़ी शक्ति टूरिज्म में है। उस टूरिज्म को प्रमोट करने का सबसे बड़ा काम आप अपने तरीके से करते हैं। आपके दोस्तों के बीच, आपके ऑफिस के कलीग के बीच, आपके परिचितों के बीच नॉन इंडियन फैमिलीज, एटलीस्ट 5 फैमिलीज इन ए ईयर अगर आप हिंदुस्तान की यात्रा के लिए भेजते हैं, आप इस देश के गरीब से गरीब आदमी को रोजी देने की सेवा कर सकते हैं। इतना करेंगे, मैं समझता हूँ देश के लिए बहुत बड़ी सेवा होगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
A short trip was also made to learn about the work that SEVA, or Self-Employed Women's Association, is doing to empower underprivileged women economically and socially through self-help programs.
Here we are at the Sun Temple. It's absolutely amazing, especially for being 1,000 years old.
Each stone is connected so interestingly. It's joined together. Everything is cut by hand. It's just so spectacular.
When you go to a temple, and especially like this one, every carving, we just think that it's so beautiful, but it has a significance and everything has a meaning.
We usually say that what we can do now, we could never have done 100 or 200 years ago. Well, this temple strikes me as something that what could have been done 1,000 years ago could never be done now. The breathtaking effect the Sun Temple had on us was evident by our reluctance to leave the temple premises. What collectively amazed us was the fact that something this intricately beautiful was built 1,000 years ago with stunning scientific, architectural, astrological, and mythological accuracy. Every visitor to India that I have ever met has never failed to mention how he or she was fascinated by how hospitable the people are. It really is an amazing feeling when you're made to feel at home in a remote village in interior Gujarat, thousands of miles away from where you reside.
Today we went to the wildlife sanctuary to see quote-unquote wild ass. We didn't see any, but we learned a lot of important life lessons. Like a Jeep can comfortably hold like 20 people on the roof. I think today, like of all the days so far, this was the most fun for me.
Using camel carts as our mode of transportation to the neighboring villages enabled us to get a feel for what rural life in India was really like. When you're on a camel traveling at 3 miles an hour, you can't help but notice things that would be rendered invisible if we were on a bus.
We were on the camel cart, and we asked the camel driver what the camel's name was.
Oh yeah.
And he replied, the camel's name is Camel. That kind of philosophy, I think, characterizes the village life very well. It's simple yet profound.
When we were going through those narrow alleyways, and we came on this cell phone tower.
Yeah.
And like we were riding on camel carts, surrounded by just like all these shop village people, and there's a cell phone tower in the middle. It really showed how like old India can kind of coexist with the new.
Vishnu. His classmate. Sat. Buffalo. He works with the buffalo. And his parents also work with the buffalo.
Heard about the child marriages and everything like all our lives. We see it in documentaries, but I still could not get it past me that they were married at that age. You see the Mongols with their legs and stuff and walking around, the 2 little girls, And I don't know, I couldn't get over it it took me almost like until we got to the next village to get over that.
What was really fascinating was how they had used like cow dung and mud to like make their houses. Apparently cow dung is actually anti-insect, so it keeps like insects and stuff away. So it was like pretty interesting.
I also spoke to one girl. Her name was Sahini. I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said she wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I was really happy, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be a doctor too, and like, it was just like really nice to like hear that from her as a girl in the village. I was really touched by the little kids. I mean, they were so happy, and when they saw us, just waving hi and bye was just so touching because I honestly felt like a celebrity. They were so excited, they ran after our camel cart.
By interacting with the village children, we came to know about their daily lives, their needs, their joys, their sorrows, their goals. On the journey back to the resort, we were left with a palpable sense of the fact that dreams have a language of their own, and that smiles transcend the boundaries of language and class.
The place which we are going to visit now is an international border with India and Pakistan. It is called Bigakot border.
When we went into the bunkers, they led us like downstairs to where they all live. And I mean, it's true. I mean, they live on like cots and like, you know, there's no AC. It was really funny, like their kitchen area was, someone said this earlier, it was like, you know, naan, like some potatoes and like a machine gun. It was like completely just, I mean, it's so interesting to see that.
Pakistan and India being so separate, but like at the border, it's the same land continues. You know, you turn around one way, you can't tell which is India, which is Pakistan. So I mean, it's nice to have that as a reminder that
you're all both grateful for and humbled by the opportunity to visit the border. It's something that, I mean, not even residents of both India and Pakistan get to do even once in their life, I can imagine. So it's, for us coming from 10,000 miles away, it's a boon, I think, to be able to experience this.
One day we went to the border and I realized that like a lot of the commanders and whatever, they offered their friendship to us even though we were total strangers. Or like when we went to Modi's place, we had friendship from him. There are different aspects of friendship. I think this was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life, and that's from the heart.
The Bunny village's economy is based on the sale of handicrafts to tourists like us, and partaking both in their wares and their warm smiles was solidly satisfying.
When you think of the villages of India, you think poverty immediately, but it's not necessarily the case. They are pretty well off.
I mean, at the same time, they still like wear the traditional clothes and they have the traditional jewelry on and they have like tattoos and I mean, they're selling their work and I think they're just changing with the time.
One aspect of this trip that we're all going to take back with us is how friendly people of India are. Like, imagine if, like, in America, if, like, a tour group came into your house and, like, just wanted to, like, observe, like, things in your own house or in your own town. I mean, like, most of you guys would be like, what are you guys doing, you know? But these guys take us into their villages and, like, educate us, like, treat us with proper respect and everything.
It's one thing to invite and embrace a group of quote-unquote foreigners into your home when you own a lakefront $1 million property. But what we've seen here is that people embracing and inviting us when they have very little to offer themselves. What these people show, what these people offer comes from the inside, which is what's important.
To be able to walk on the remnants of a prominent and prosperous ancient civilization was awe-inspiring. It was obvious that the Indus Valley civilization was eons ahead of its time, judging by its flawless reservoir and drainage systems. Many of us fell upon actual Harappan artifacts and were spellbound by being literally in touch with something that had been created 2,000 years before Christ.
We were able to pick up, and you can see this used to be a plate, this used to be a pot, and this was literally from the civilization, and we can just kind of take it as a souvenir.
But you should have seen Ashwinji's face and my face when we actually found out that that perfect structure was 5,000 years old. We couldn't believe it.
I just sat down on the rock and looked all around me, and it's the same kind of structures, like sewage and farming, and it was just this is what they did 5,000 years ago, and I couldn't run around. That's how big it was for me.
Time Magazine, Newsweek, they're all coming out with, oh, India emerging. And sometimes, especially while we saw the Dholavira site, it was interesting to realize that actually India already emerged, there were a superpower. It's the Indus Valley civilization.
What struck us during the visit to Dholavira was how rich India's history is, and that we were witnessing the reasons why it was revered as one of the world's most prosperous nations. From an affluent civilization, we made our way to what was an affluent princely state of Kathia, Gondal. We visited the Naulakha Palace of Maharaja Bhagwat Singh Ji and absorbed in awe the grandeur of his former palatial residence. We also visited a prominent cloth-producing factory of the area and learned how the kurtas we wear are actually born of singular pieces of thread woven by majestically talented craftsmen and women.
Their whole goal is to provide employment to women from the village. So it's beneficial to both the economy and it provides labor for the women as well.
You read The Economist and you hear that India is doing great in terms of corporate growth and Reliance, and these companies are doing really great. But then, it was really heartening to see groups like, Seva Bank and the Khadi Cooperative doing some great work on a more individual level, and that, the success of growth is not just limited to all the tycoons. A lot of us, it's been kind of a resolidification of faith in India, and we realized what we love about it and how, we want to make it better.
We felt blessed to be able to make a short, albeit unforgettably sweet trip to the Somnath Temple, one of the 12 Jyotirlingas or symbols of the Lord Shiva.
I don't think I've ever been more at peace with myself in my life. Sitting there, staring at the waves and listening to the sound, and then having the mandir in the back, the bells ringing, I don't think anybody can ever feel that happy, and it was almost like you were in heaven, as some people were saying. If I could bring that peace that I felt at that mandir back to me somehow, some way, to somebody's life, in my work or my practice, that would just be, I think, the most wonderful thing anyone can do.
This trip was undoubtedly living up to being called a yatra. From the palaces of Gondal and the spirituality of Somnath, we made a beeline for the popular beach resort of Diu.
A festival of color. I danced for a mile with the local people of Diu. It was really amazing as they were throwing this really bright red pigment in the air and generously rubbing the powder all over my face. Having the opportunity to connect with the local people of Diu felt really great to me.
And what followed were hours of water, waves, soccer, kabaddi, and yes, even clubbing in Diu's very own discotheque. The next morning, before departing for Bhavnagar, we paid a visit to a famous church.
We walked into this church in Diu, and a man was holding his grandson, cute little boy, and I noticed that he had a tikka on his head, and I went up to him and I asked him, do you come here every day? And he said, yeah, every day, without fail. And I asked him, are you Christian? He says, no, I'm Hindu. And I thought that was very representative of Indian society. It represented tolerance, something that we're known to be.
Bhavnagar was the last stop on our Gujarat Yatra before we left for Bombay.
We got a chance to interact with a lot of lay people, a lot of people just, in the markets, at the hotels. And the linguistic, flexibility, the adaptability that, you could speak to somebody in English if you wanted, because we were in Gujarat, they spoke Gujarati, or Hindi, and, you could get along with that. That's absolutely remarkable.
After being treated to an exquisite Garba program by colorfully dressed and amazingly talented little girls, we set off for what is the most sacred pilgrimage place, or Tirtha, for the Jain community, the temples of Paritana. Its architectural brilliance and serene beauty at 3.5 kilometers above sea level bedazzled us, and made the 3,500-step ascent more of a spiritual experience than a strenuous one.
India never ceases to amaze me as a land whose essence no scribes can pinpoint and no cameras can capture, but only the eyes can behold. And for this, I am extremely grateful and thankful to the Bharat Yatra for organizing this and giving me this opportunity.
A reception and meeting with the Honorable Mayor of Bhavnagar was a fitting end to our Gujarat trip, because it left us with an impression that progress was being made in every aspect of life in this city and in India as a whole, and that the latter surely is emerging.
Coming here as Yatris, we've all changed our perspective and what we think India is. We can never define India because it's so elusive. It's such a mysterious country. Like, there's so much that it has to offer. And I think the world is just kind of beginning to see that.
I just can't fathom using a structure from like 5,000 years ago or 500 years ago. I think that's something really special about India. India is not the U.S. and it should not become the U.S. And if it does, that'll be a really big loss, I think, for the world.
I find a sense of pride from India that I did not have coming here necessarily. Growing up in America, it's very easy to lose touch with your culture, lose touch with heritages. But after coming to India, I know that I'm much more proud to be Indian.
As we made our way back home to the U.S., we cast wistful glances through airplane windows at India, rapidly disappearing below us into the twilight sky. Before we knew it, 2 weeks had come and gone. But unlike ordinary vacations that leave behind fleeting reminders, a suntan, or a photo album, our yatra has undoubtedly left more enduring traces in us on both intellectual and emotional levels. Regardless of our varying levels of familiarity with India, managed to touch us all in meaningful ways. For some, it was the admiration of the beauty present in India's million contradictions. For others, it was a sense of its historic past brought to life in every brick, pillar, and alleyway. If the intent of our yatra was to help develop a deep love for India and to inspire us to want to become involved in its development, then it certainly succeeded in sowing the seeds for involvement both today and in the future. India's strength lies in our people, a people that adhere to culture as well as they understand and embrace the value of change, a hallmark of a truly progressive society. Our yatra may be over for now, but our relationship with India is far from it.